I'm coming to talk about. Good morning, as folks are joining us. Good to see you all. And if you ever get a chance to see Coldplay, take it. I was at Gillette last night with them. Very 9:30 call, lots of love. Um, it's an incredible show. So it was also very warm, and I think the warm continues today in New England. So hopefully folks can stay cool. We're so excited to have Lauren and Daniel here with us this morning. And NAYC is an organization that is very close to my heart, having served on the board twice in two different terms and one as president, where you serve president-elect, president for 2 years, and then past president. And we know there's an exciting thing happening next year for NAYC. But just so grateful for the work that Lauren and Daniel are doing and have been doing. NAYC has been such an incredible leader through COVID and kind of this unique positioning that you are so connected to the people doing the work, but also as a national organization. So just really appreciate all that you're doing. So our first question for all 9:30 callers. I know Lauren has been here before. I don't know if Daniel, if you've been here before. Um,
Maybe a long time ago.
well, so
Not
tell
with
us a little
Nikki.
bit about you and how you came to be in your current role.
Yeah, I'll happily start. I came to be in my current role 2 years ago because Lauren encouraged me to apply for the role. I have been working in early childhood policy for a little over 15 years now, starting at the Children's Defense Fund, then at 0 to 3, then at NAEYC, and I think over the course of my career, I've always had a focus and a commitment to ensuring high quality care for young children, and I've always admired NAEYC from afar because of that deep connection to the field that you mentioned, Amy. I think you cannot do effective advocacy work if you're not talking to the people that you are advocating with and advocating for. And I have been so excited to be part of the NAEYC team now, where I have that deep and personal connection to so many members of the early childhood field that I'm able to connect with our state affiliates and state leaders on a regular basis. So it's been a real highlight for me in terms of professional work. Outside of NAEYC and outside of early childhood work, which feels all-consuming right now, given the state of the world, I have 3 young children at home. My 5-year-old is starting kindergarten next month, which is a major milestone, and my youngest just turned 1. So I both get to live early childhood and work early childhood. I would give anything for an adults-only cruise right now. But yeah, no, I absolutely love being connected both to the personal and seeing how young children's development is supported at home, being connected to my own children's educators. And in the very rare free time I have, I'm an avid reader of science fiction and I enjoy hiking when it is not 85 degrees and humid outside. So I'll turn it over to Lauren.
Hi, everybody. Well, I've been here before and love getting to hang out with the 9:30 callers. So thanks for having us. And yeah, Daniel had the role that Daniel's in before Daniel, and then continuing to try to operate in every department at NAYC at some point. We're just trying to see how many roles and titles at NAYC I can take over the years. I've been there for 10 years, and am excited to be able to get into talking with you all today about what we've been working on, and how some of the federal stuff is affecting all of you, and give you a preview of some of the things that we're working on right now.
And Lauren, if you do have a chance, I don't think you've been on the call since you have testified in front of Congress.
Are we on
And
topic or off the record right now? Because that's a relevant conversation.
well, I think just because I think for an organization that always prepares people, for you then to be the person, like I think I just love to hear that perspective of what it felt like and how you prepared, and maybe, talk to, share what you wanted to share. But I think, that people are often just so intimidated, and you are kind of someone that got to do it as somebody who prepares other people. But first, let's hear your update, and then we'd love to hear more about that.
Perfect. I'll
Yeah.
turn it back over to Daniel to kick us off.
Yeah, so I'm happy to start with kind of the where we are now. section of the update because there is a lot to cover with where we are now, and it's where, unfortunately, we're spending a lot of our time thinking. And then I'll turn it over to Lauren after I've given a bit of an update there, to talk a little bit more about how we're still viewing a really hopeful and exciting future for the early childhood field, even in this current moment, and the work we're doing to advance that. Amy, as you said, NAEYC is a national organization that has the great privilege of also representing about 50,000 members across the country and working in partnership with 50 state affiliates. So all the work we do is directly informed by the lived experiences of early childhood educators. And that's why in something like the budget reconciliation bill, we really were able to push hard on what educators working with young children needed holistically. We NAEYC, I think, among broader community of groups, was not as focused on kind of small tax credits when we were thinking holistically about the impacts of Medicaid cuts, SNAP cuts, major safety net changes, and then state budget challenges, because we are listening to the field and we're understanding how the field is navigating their own reality and their current circumstances. That shows up in our regular survey work that I hope all of you are engaging in or sharing within your networks. It shows up in the focus group conversations that inform our policy agenda. It shows up in how we prepare folks to testify before Capitol Hill, how we prepare folks to testify at different events at the White House, briefings, state events, state legislative summits. It shows up in our public policy forum, where if you've not gotten to go and hear Amy O'Leary's first timer session, I highly encourage you to be a first timer so you can connect with Amy this year at our public policy forum coming up in February. We bring over 400 early childhood educators to DC to have 2 days of, I think, very intensive advocacy training, the feedback is saying, and then connect with their members of Congress and staff. It's really the core of who we are and how we operate. And it's also why we are both concerned in this current moment and really working hard to prepare, especially state advocates, for what's to come. Massachusetts, as you all know, has been an incredible leader in early childhood policy work. You've been an innovator. You've been building on the lessons that we learned from the pandemic about the power of investment. We also know that we're coming up on a really challenging time because of the situation that the budget reconciliation bill that just passed puts us in, with the Medicaid and SNAP cuts that are coming out in states, both directly impacting many early childhood educators and impacting state budgets in terms of the money that's going to be pulled back and shifted to the states. We know that we're in for a couple of years of pretty significant fights to hopefully continue to build on the great example of Massachusetts, but also protect what we have. We saw a little bit of a preview of this in Maine this year, where some of our advocates, led by our Maine NAEYC affiliate, were pushing back against significant cuts to early childhood systems that the governor had championed for years because of a Medicaid shortfall. As we see more shortfalls coming up, we are deeply concerned about every state, even states that have been making significant wins, having to defend and build on the wins that they've had and stand firm on what we need to do to support our early childhood system. And I'm sorry if you can hear loud chanting in the other room. I did mention I have 3 young children and they
We
are
can't hear
getting ready to
anything.
have a excellent. It's only distracting me then. So we will continually work with our state partners and with our members to help ensure that at every level, from state to federal, policymakers understand what the field truly needs. That's our commitment. And we are also working right now to expand the ways that we build on our supports for our members. We're hosting a webinar for our members in August, on August 7th, to give folks an opportunity to engage directly with our policy team, to ask questions about what we can expect coming out of the budget reconciliation process, what we can expect moving forward in appropriations. We're working to create more regular opportunities for focus groups. I mentioned that informed how we developed our policy agenda. It continues to inform how we develop our agenda and our priorities. But from the field, we often get those early previews of issues that are having a really resonant impact on the ground. It's how we got into our work on liability insurance last year that I think many of you have seen, and happy to share
Yep.
that in the chat after I'm done talking, because I'm a terrible multitasker. But that's where we are in the now. And I really encourage all of you, if you're connected to NAEYC already as members, thank you. If you're not, please look for opportunities to connect and engage with us. We launched a new advocacy and action email this year where we're giving folks a monthly opportunity to understand what they need to be paying attention to in Washington. and understand how to take action on the ground with some easy to use tools. Like I said, we're really working on focusing our supports for members to ensure that they have more opportunities to directly engage and inform the team's work intentionally. And again, we constantly have our ear to the ground, listening to the field. If there's an issue that you're seeing in programs in your community that you want to talk through, please. Amy has my email. Amy has Lauren's email and cell phone. Reach out. We're happy to talk. We want to hear from the field because that really does inform and that guides all the work we do. Um, I've been joking on every call I'm on. I tend to be pretty depressing these days because there's not a lot good happening in Washington. So I'm gonna shift it over to Lauren now to talk a little bit about the optimism, the future thinking that we're still doing because we're not just trying to live in this moment. We're still envisioning a future for the field that is recognizes the professional expertise, both through pathways and compensation. Lauren, take it away.
Thanks, Danielle. I was talking to Danielle Ewan the other day, who I know has been a frequent visitor at a 9:30 call, and she said she's been starting to introduce herself as the harbinger of doom on calls lately, which is just I mean, look, it's the moment we're in. And I do want to say, to Daniel's point, one of the things that we rely on so heavily is our incredible affiliate network. I know Massachusetts AAYC leaders are here somewhere on this very busy screen. Hi, Rochelle. So just wanted to recognize the sort of important work that we do in partnership with our affiliates and our interest forums, and our partners who I also see names of on the calls. I'm scrolling through all of your pieces. So just enormous thanks for all the partnerships, both sort of at the federal level and the state and local levels. It's that sort of interchange of grass tops and grassroots and affiliates and state partner organizations that sort of give us the ability to tell these stories in real time to policymakers, and to the press, frankly, and to thinking about some of the new media, how we engage on social media and where the conversations are, what kind of stories we're telling, what people are paying attention to. So there's sort of that body of work that continues, sort of in real time, and then really thinking about, I'm just going to give a couple of examples. One, which is sort of like heavily on our mind, is thinking about our position statements, and sort of how those continue to be grounding, I think, for educators and for NAEYC and for our partners. So NAEYC has 5 foundational position statements. They include developmentally appropriate practice, the professional standards and competencies, that are sort of collective and shared. We hold these sort of with and on behalf of the field. Um, the early learning program standards, which were revised and released just earlier this spring, and of course, advancing equity in early childhood education. The fifth of these is code of ethics, which we are in the process of finalizing and will be putting out this fall. It has not been revised since 2011, which turns out a lot has happened since 2011. And there was just a lot to update. And to use this document as something that sort of allows the field and again the organization to be rooted in our values and to come back to like, how do I practice ethically in this time? What does it look like to have this ethical guidance? And how, as a community, do we continue to engage in these ethical dilemmas that we're continuing to face? Can we rely on each other? Where do we have these conversations? Both in terms of sort of, again, how we sort of react ethically and have ethical practice when it comes to children and families, our relationships with children and families as educators, but also sort of society's ethical obligations to early childhood educators and what we sort of hold ourselves and our world accountable for, in terms of how they treat early childhood educators and our profession. Um, this sort of ties into, again, NAEYC is one member of the Commission on Professional Excellence. There are 14 national organizations and 11 early childhood educators, each of whom hold an equal vote, and sort of moving forward. This is the carrying forward of the work of Power to the Profession and the unifying framework. Other professions, social work, speech language pathology, doctors, nurses, teachers, they have code of ethics. They have a profession. Early childhood education is not quite there yet. So we're like a little bit, we kind of like fake it till you make it. It's like, okay, we're going to have a code of ethics. We don't have a mechanism to hold everybody accountable because we don't have a licensing structure for practicing those code of ethics. We have a statement of commitment. Folks sign on, they opt in, right? They choose to be part of this work, actively choose to be part of this work in community with each other, and working towards continually a vision of this diverse, effective, equitable early childhood education profession across states and settings, holding both the truth of like the urgency and the real challenges of the moment while building towards this future so that we're not having the exact same fights and the exact same circular conversations forever and ever and ever. And I'll put in an updated, Amy put in the power of the profession. The Commission on Professional Excellence also has a website with all of this information. And again, happy to talk more about that probably at a different time. I will say to Amy's point about sort of preparing the question about sort of Senate testimony and preparing, we have spent many, many years, as Daniel and others know, sort of, again, both thinking about educator voice in the context of policymaking. One of the things that the pandemic, I mean, did allow us to do was bring educator voices in front of policymakers in a very different way because of the virtual nature of it. There, we brought in educators from across the country to testify in real, again, sort of like really new ways. Staffers and senators weren't used to that yet until the pandemic. We've been able to sort of continue to capitalize that, but really making sure again that educators know that this is their expertise that they are rooted in, and that they're able to sort of share that with policymakers and seeing it make a difference in real time. It was part of what got us the $50 billion in relief funding, and it was part of what we continue now to fight to hold on to some of these pieces, and to think about what that means for moving forward. Um, Testifying is, I mean, it's again, educators are like, this is really scary for a reason. It's scary for a reason. Like it is hard to sit in front of everybody and have them fire questions at you in real time, especially when if they're not necessarily about the topic that you have thought you were presenting on. Perhaps it's going to be about Jesus. You never know. That is something that happened in real time. For me, it's like, okay, we're talking about that now. But yeah, I think being able to protect, to again, sort of like know that you are rooted in the expertise that you bring, both as educators and as advocates, and being able to have the opportunity to really convey that, to folks at a time when there's an opportunity to make a difference, and to really feel heard in that context. Many of you have testified in other settings, local and state, city councils and state legislative meetings and getting up in front of microphones. Like it is really scary the first time. It is less scary the second time. It is even less scary the fifth time. And so just being able to practice that, I think has been really important for all of us, to be able to just engage over and over again,
Right.
in being able to do that.
Lauren, because I've known you for such a long time, and this is the spirit of the 9:30 call, surprise guest, but you tell a story about when you were working for NBCDI about Carol Brunson Day as a leader. And I would love for you to share that story because we, Strategies for Children, just announced that we are going to have an embedded fellowship program where we are going to have an embedded fellow for 20 months in Strategies for Children, three other organizations. The Rennie Center has just started an early education fellowship. We have our advocacy network, like there are all these programs really thinking about the kind of how we're cultivating, nurturing, supporting, giving opportunities to practice leadership. Can you just share that story about when you were working with Carol and kind of that back and forth?
So I came to NBCDI in 2009. And actually, Betty Bargage was the one who originally, which for Massachusetts folks, was the one who originally facilitated my connection with Carol. And I think these are real stories about sort of how we as leaders sort of connect each other and bring each other in.
And just for our acronym, it's the National Black
Black Child
Child
Development
Develop.
Institute.
Thank you.
And the story that what I think Amy is referencing, it's true, we have known each other for a long time. Carol really, I mean, Carol's a mentor to many of us. And Daniel actually talked earlier about sort of how I had encouraged him to apply for this role, sort of taking that on the way that other people have done for me and sort of brought me in. The thing that I've talked about that Carol has did for me at the time was sort of what I had called sort of, she sort of like lent me her credibility. She was very trusted. And she sort of said like, look, you trust me, I trust Lauren. Like, let's bring her into this field. And that allowance was one of the most generous sort of acts I think that somebody has done for me still. And that I've tried, I think, to sort of carry on to others is this idea of this like transitive property of trust. And really being able to say beyond, because again, Betty trusted me, Carol trusted me, and then Carol was able to sort of give that off to somebody else. And really being able to use that as broadly as we can. I was saying to Daniel earlier, the early childhood field loves to talk to itself. And this is a challenge for the moment that we're in. We need to talk to other people. And that means bringing in as many people as we can and sort of allowing the messiness a little bit. It's messy. It's a messy time. And it's okay. It's okay for us. We've talked about that with Code of Ethics too. Like, what does it mean? Where do we fall short? Like, this is a document that people are supposed to grapple with. Ethics are tough. Like,
Right.
let's grapple with what we want now and how we move forward. And that means bringing in new perspectives and new leaders and really paving the paths for some of these pieces. It's really, I will always be grateful for not only Carol, but many of my colleagues at NBCDI, Felicia and Kiami, who sort of brought me in and who have continued to develop these relationships over time. So just continuing to think about that as you all are putting that leadership structures together, you'll love to see it. And just really looking forward then. We hope to hear more about who your leaders and fellows are so that we can also, one of the things NEC can do at the national stage is like give people additional visibility. That stuff does matter. And really being able to play into that is exciting.
9:30 callers, as we show Danielle Ewan the love and appreciation. I'd love for you to share it to Daniel and Lauren because I think we rely on organizations like NAYC, like Danielle Ewan, to get us the information so that we can bring the information to folks. And we know with everything happening, with the announcement about Head Start over the weekend, people immediately were like, "What's going on? Like, let us know." So I want to make sure. Daniel, I'm going to give you the last word. But I think what I have also, come being involved at NAEYC as a volunteer is you serve people on both sides of the aisle, right? This is a national organization that is nonpartisan, and you want to be an expert and a resource for all elected officials as well as people who are doing the work. And understanding like how all these pieces fit together, how you message, just want to acknowledge, what an incredible job you have been doing to make sure that kind of what we care about for children has been cornerstone and in the center. And sometimes that means, having discussions, talking about research and data, but also sharing the stories. So just want to acknowledge that for you, for both of you and the team at NYC. So Daniel, any other things you'd like to add?
I think that said it really well, Amy, and I do just really love to emphasize that like you can't do this work if you're just talking to yourselves, as Lauren said. It's important for us to kind of continue to center our experience in what the field is seeing now and doing now. And I really do appreciate what Lauren mentioned about mentorship and about bringing people along. Lauren's been an incredible mentor in my career as well and supporter. And I do think that where you have a position and opportunity to bring other people along in their advocacy journeys, I highly encourage you to build that professionalism, build that support now, and help grow our field because we're going to need more power, more voices, and more opportunities. in the next few years more than ever. I do just see a quick question in the chat
Thank
about
you.
the announcement about Head Start, and I just did want to acknowledge if folks haven't seen, I'll share an AC statement as well. There was an announcement last week that the administration was going to reinterpret PERORA, which is the child welfare law from the 1990s, to reinterpret Head Start as a child welfare program rather than an education program, which would allow the administration to bar certain immigrants from attending Head Start by requiring programs to verify children's immigration status, which Head Start has never had to do in its 60-year history. We're obviously deeply concerned about the impacts of this for Head Start programs, for families, for communities, and for young children's development, because we know that Head Start remains one of the best ways for young children to be supported and grow and develop a strong foundation for the rest of their lives. So this is a we're there's still going to be a fight over this decision. We know that there are going to be legal challenges. We're going to be commenting during the proposed rulemaking process, but as per the administration's announcement, they intended for this to go into effect immediately. And there will be lots of opportunities for folks to engage with their networks to discuss kind of what this means for their programs. There was a national webinar that Start Early held yesterday that had some good information and context for programs, including information about what programs should not be doing now in terms of overly complying without information about how enforcement is going to be determined. But it just again is another kind of challenge in a rising wave of challenges. I'm also very cognizant of the $7 billion in education funding that was withheld and the challenges on that. This is a really hard time to do this work, and so it's really important more now than ever for us to all have each other's backs and for us to ensure that educators' voices and the families they serve are at the center of our conversations and of all of our work, because that's the only way we're going to continue to move forward and advance.
Thanks so much, Lauren and Daniel. And, I think I learned so much being part of NAEYC on the board, serving on Mass AYC. I think, watching this a national organization, how you make decisions, how you think about when to step up, when to step back, how you work with national partners. I learned so much at my time. And we didn't mention that next year, NAEYC is turning 100. And I've been part of a kind of planning group where we learned that only 2% of nonprofits make it to be 100 years old. So that is incredible in its own. Side note, Strategies for Children will be celebrating 25 years, so a quarter century next year. But just we're looking forward to that. Appreciate Daniel and our commissioner says we got to stay together. And I think the 9:30 call has been one way. We've been saying this is the 9:30 call is more than a call, it's a community. And we have been like constantly inspired by the people kind of joining us every single day. We had over 60 people here this morning. And if you go to the NAEYC
I feel
website,
inspired by your community. Like this is an amazing
Yeah,
community, y'all.
this
I
is
hope you know
amazing.
that.
it is. It is. And so thanks everybody for the chat. Tons of resources at NAEYC. If you have any questions, Lauren and Daniel, as you heard, are happy to check in. So let me know if you want to be connected. And please come back anytime. We're happy to have you here, especially when you are doing, we try to share the workforce surveys, as Kayla mentioned, kind of any way that you are trying to collect information. We want to get you connected to folks who are doing the work.
Appreciate it. I
Um,
put my email in the chat if anyone wants to reach out after the call or has any questions. But so appreciate the work you're doing, Amy, and just this incredible group.
Excellent. Well, next Monday, we're going to hear from Michelle McDougall and the team at Little Amigos to hear their story. And then we're going to hear from Shalia, who's the executive director at Bottom Line, sharing the microphone. And then we're going to hear from Pratima Patel, who's doing a lot of work around screening. So stay tuned for the email, and we will see you all next week. Have a good Thursday, and thanks so much for joining.
Thanks
Thanks,
all.
y'all.